Well, hello, and thank you for tuning into this webinar here, our F1 Immigration webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic, especially important for students who are joining us for the first time, but might be important at any time during the time you're here with us. And that's going to be requesting a Social Security number. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. After one very important reminder. So, an important reminder that we like to talk about before all of our presentations is that this presentation reflects the current ISSC advisement at time of recording. So, always keep in mind that you can visit issc.asu.edu regularly for current announcements and updates. So, anything that's been happening, any news related to this subject or any other subject that's important for our students here, the most up-to-date information is always going to be on our website. So please make sure to check that out regularly. Now, a social security number. So here in the United States, social security number, that's issued to track pay over as a worker's lifetime. Now, social security number is received at birth for a U.S. citizen, but anybody who's going to get any kind of payment or is within a payment system here in the U.S. is going to need a social security number to keep track of that payment and track of the pay over the worker's entire lifetime here. That's what the purpose of it is. Now, what is it not? An SSN is not an off-campus employment authorization. Now, you if you ever have off-campus employment authorization, SSN is probably going to come into it at some point, but it is not in and of itself an authorization. So just because you have a social security number does not mean that you are necessarily allowed to work. That is just a separate thing. Now, in terms of what an SSN is not required for, this is also something that comes up a lot. It is not required to open a bank account in the US. It is not a requirement in terms of renting an apartment in the US or to start a mobile phone contract or to apply for a credit card. Now, if you're encountering those ideas, I guess you could say, when you're trying to open a bank account in an apartment or something like that, it can be the case that those who are involved with that process at the bank, for example, may initially think that it's the case that someone needs a social security number. Most of the time, US citizens do require that. But it's not going to be a requirement in your case. So if you're hearing that from people, you may just have to be a little persistent, remind them, no, that's not a requirement. There would be a workaround for anyone that's in that situation. Now, another kind of delineation that we have here is the SSN versus an I-10, an I-10 standing for an individual tax identification number. Now, if you don't work on campus, but you receive a scholarship that's taxable, you should apply for this I-10 here. So that's something that we can help you at least to start with that process, and then that's something that if you have a scholarship, you can work with your department on. But just something to keep in mind in terms of that. Social security numbers is, well, it's not primarily, it is designed for work. That is what the purpose of the Social Security is, and to track pay over the course of a worker's lifetime again. Now, who needs a Social Security number? So, if you're going to be employed in the United States, you must apply for a Social Security number. That is just any kind of employment that you have, any pay that you receive, anything along those lines in the United States requires a Social Security number. You're only issued one throughout your lifetime. So, that's true of anybody that gets a Social Security number. That's true of US citizens. Anyone who gets one, you have a number that you are issued for your lifetime, and that just is your number. So if you change jobs, anything like that, that number is just going to be your number. It's going to carry with you, so you don't need to apply again. If you change positions, that's just going to be your number. Now, if you lose the actual card here, you're going to have to start the process again with ISSC. However, you're not going to get a new number entirely. You're going to get a replacement card. So your number is always associated with you, and just if you lose a card, you're just going to get a replacement card as opposed to a replacement number. So in terms of applying, you can apply for a Social Security number up to 30 days before the start date of when you are employed. Now, if you're an initial student, someone who is joining us here for the first time, say maybe you have a job lined up here on campus, you can't apply for Social Security. You cannot rather apply for Social Security number until you've completed the SEVIS check-in and you've been in the U.S. for at least 10 days. So just keep that in mind in terms of when you can apply. Now, what do you need to apply for a Social Security number? So, first thing is you're going to need an original employment offer letter that's certified by ISSC. So that's going to be a requirement. It's ultimately going to go to the Social Security Administration. They need both your employer and your DSO, which that's us here at ISSC. We are your DSOs to verify that you have this employment. So the way we do it is we have an employment offer letter that is filled out by your employer and that we certify it as well. In addition to that, you're going to need your most recent I-94 as well as your most recent I-20, a completed SSN application. This is something that you can either fill out as a paper application. In that case, it would be page 5 of that, or it can also be filled out online at the Social Security Administration website, as well as a valid passport here. Now, if you're applying under your CPT or OPT, if you're not applying for or via an on-campus job, you're also going to need the original employment offer letter, and it's going to need to have the EIN number on it. And keep that in mind also that just a little note on that for OPT or CPT students, you don't need to actually have the Social Security certification request letter. The employment letter sort of works for that purpose, I guess you could say. And then you also need your most recent I-20 that's specifically associated with the OPT or the CPT. And if it's applicable, not always under these circumstances, but in some circumstances for OPT primarily, if your EAD card is part of it, you're going to need your EAD card as well. Now, that's what our offer letter looks like. That's what it looks like on a little tablet or phone there. So just keep that in mind there that this is going to need to be completed by your employer here. That's going to be if it's on-campus employment. And then you see in the little right-hand corner there at the bottom where our signature would go, a DSO signature. So this is what it would look like, and this is what that first document on that list is going to look like here. Now, in terms of how to actually apply, once you have all those documents ready, so first of all, you got to make sure that you're enrolled full time, very important for many, many reasons. Then you're going to ask your department or your employer within the department, however that works, for your on-campus employment letter. It must follow that ISSC template. So we've designed that template so it can satisfy the requirements for the Social Security application at the administration. So that's why you would need to be able to follow that particular template as well. Make sure it's all typed. If it's not typed, your letter just may not be accepted at all, and then leave that bottom right hand where our signature goes blank. So once you have it all typed up and everything's done, you're going to need to upload your offer letter to our certification request for a Social Security number application e-form. That's one of our e-forms on our portal. You'll just upload it to us there. Now you're going to get approval when it's ready for a signature here. Once you have got the confirmation that's been approved, you're going to bring your employment offer letter to ISC for that certification. We're going to give you that certification. Then you're going to apply for a Social Security number at the actual Social Security card center. So that's going to be something you're going to have to make time to go for in person, but you need our letter first to be able to do that. Now, at that point, you're going to wait for a new Social Security number in the mail, and then when you actually get it, it's going to come to you in the mail. You're going to update it through Human Resources, and then you also have to complete what we call our demographic update e-form, which is just where we, among other things, gather important new immigration documents when they come through while a student is here, and that would be where you would submit that information to us. Now, if you're on CPT or OPT, if this is how you're doing it, you don't need, again, our certification letter. You can use the original offer letter apply in that scenario. Now, for OPT students, you can also apply for an SSN as part of your OPT application. If you have not, up to this point in your career as a student, got a Social Security number for any other reason, you can do a simultaneous application as part of your OPT. We highly, highly recommend that. It's just going to be a little box you check. Do you also want to submit an application for SSN along with your OPT? We say yes. That is something that you should take advantage of if that's applicable in your situation. Now, here's some resources that you're definitely going to want to check out as you're going through this process here. So first of all, there's ISSC. There's us. We have a whole landing page about Social Security. There's SSA, stands for Social Security Administration. There is the actual form that you would need to fill out that you can pull there. USCIS has some information about students that are on an immigration status and in terms of how they can actually apply for Social Security. And then Study in the States also has another good informational page just about obtaining your Social Security number as well. So lots of really great resources on this particular topic because it comes up a lot, as you can probably imagine. So here's some common questions that you may or may not be thinking about if you're going through this process yourself. So let's take a minute to address some of those. So how long does it take to get your Social Security number? So they're actually going to send it to you in the mail, and it is as soon as your immigration information has been verified. Keep in mind that from the time that you get confirmation it's been verified, it can take up another 2 to 4 weeks for it actually to come through and for you to get it in the mail. Now, what if your Social Security card is lost or if it gets stolen? So in that case, you can replace it for free if it's lost or stolen, if you meet the eligibility requirements that we've noticed. If you don't currently have an on-campus job or an on-campus training authorization at the time when you lose it, SSA, they're not going to issue a replacement card. If you're going through that process, if the employment authorization is happening at the time, yes. If not, then they won't issue a new one for you. Now, can you work before you receive your Social Security card? As long as you have authorization, yes, you can start work without an SSN. Now, make sure that your employer is going to have to follow the correct instructions for you to begin work without an SSN. So there's a publication that will help you with that additional information there. You can begin work, but on your employer side, there are some things that they're going to need to do on their side. So just make sure that that is something that they're compliant with. And then you definitely want to make sure that you apply for an SSN as soon as possible after you're getting your job offer. If you forget to apply, if there's issue with that, you're gonna run into issues with payment. That's just gonna be an issue in general, and you definitely want to get that corrected. But you're also gonna run into tax problems when you're doing tax filing later. So just make sure you get it done as soon as possible for a variety of reasons. Well, we thank you for tuning into this little video that we have here. We hope this was informative for you here. And if you liked this video, if you thought, man, it would be a lot of fun to watch this video, except the person delivering the lines was live, and I could ask them questions directly, well, you can, at least here at ISSC. We have webinars and workshops throughout the semester on various topics, including this one in particular, as well as some other important hot topics within immigration. So if you want to interact with us live, please take a look at our event schedule on our events website there, and we'd love to see you for a live event. And we thank you very much for tuning into this webinar today, and we hope to see you for another one right here on the same channel.